Hey, it's my pleasure, Mindy. I really appreciate it. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to lead off with a story because my thing is storytelling. And so this evening, what I'm going to do is I'm going to first start sharing my slides because that would be helpful. And then I'm going to tell you a story about a guy on my first submarine. So back in the day, I served on board the USS Archerfish, SSN 678, which is now a bunch of razor blades, but it's not relevant to the story. But that just kind of gives you a context for how old I am and when I served on active duty. There was an auxiliary machinist mate named Don, and Don was an incredible mechanic and fabricator, the guy who could solve just about any problem with a mechanical system involved. On one occasion, he designed and milled a brand new seawater fitting for the engine room as a replacement part was not available in the supply system. We were deployed to the Mediterranean Sea, supporting special missions, and we could not wait for the local team at the submarine tender to make a replacement part. He was so good that by the time he transferred, he had received 3 Navy Achievement Medals and was promoted to Chief Petty Officer in the process. Don was a hero at the right time, a one-man show, doing it all and getting the bulk of the recognition for the solution. I was in awe of his ability to deliver results, and I saw him as a role model of sorts. I was a junior sailor, and I worked in a different department. In fact, I made copies of his awards and made sure that they were recorded in his personnel file. There was a problem, and I didn't realize it then, but I realized it years later. Now, don't get me wrong. I compared Don's way of saving the day to others who approached similar situations just a bit differently. And I realized there is a difference between being a hero and showing how to be a hero who builds team trust and who raises everyone's performance around them. So that's the leadoff story. I want to thank you for joining this webinar. Sorry, I can't hear you over my own awesomeness, how being a hero erodes trust. The question's already out there, and it's a valid one. Do you have a team, or do you know of teams that are struggling with somebody who exhibits kind of a hero complex? If so, this session is designed to give you some insights that may help you realign the team and the heroes to achieve better outcomes. As noted earlier, my name is Tim Dickey, and I was tried and tested in the U.S. Submarine Force, and I supported U.S. Special Operations teams at the latter part of my career. The experience I gained over the course of those years fell in many countries around the world while being deployed. And finally, near the end of my career, I was selected, tested, and accepted as a U.S. Navy Chief Petty Officer after passing through the crucible of Chief's induction. So I'm going to share with you the benefit of nearly 25 years of active and reserve service. When I retired, like the Super Bowl champion, Peyton Manning, with the 2 Lombardi trophies at the top of my game. From my early days in the Navy, I embraced precision, following the 3 P's: policy, process, and procedure, which gave me outstanding results. In the military, heroes are valued for their selfless actions towards successful mission goal and mission accomplishment, which is due to an innate understanding of the 3 P's and how they work together to support success. Once I left the Navy, I developed and applied processes to earn my college degrees and to pass many certifications. And yet, it began to dawn on me that the 3 P's don't apply all the time and in every situation. As time has flowed like a winding stream through a forest, I also have become aware that not every situation, project, or team needs to operate as crisply as the submarine crews I had served with in the Navy. As well, most work should be accomplished without the need for heroic behavior. Teamwork and trust are essential in many environments and work settings, in submarines, special operations, and in business. As a member of the Agile community, I share the lessons I learned the hard way and how they might help you in your teams. I want to encourage you to maintain an open mind this evening and gather insight through feedback, reflection, and adaptation of my stories to your business context. Now, you know a bit about me. You may be wondering, hey, Tim, what's in it for me or with them? Oh, little side note, with them might be called bottom line up front or bluff, as we say in the military. It's a fair question to ask yourself. It's a fair question to ask me. I'm going to share with you what you might learn in this session. I plan to give you 3 thoughts to consider. Number 1, how to recognize the hero complex, associated behavior, and gauge team trust. 2, encourage team enabling behavior from the hero. And 3, cultivate trust, develop just-in-time heroes, and heroic teams. Quick disclaimer, what's being shared is based on my experience and should not be considered refutable, only referenceable. I strongly encourage you to learn from my stories to potentially avoid similar mistakes and achieve better results. Dawn was not my first or last encounter with heroes. As I learned from supporting and watching other teams in the military and in business, I realized some common indicators that tend to show in team members who have a hero complex. Hey, Tim, what's a hero complex? I'm glad you asked. I want you to reflect for a moment about a team you may be on or have been on in the past. Consider the person who was the go-to expert based on their knowledge, skills, or abilities. Reflect on how it felt to work with that person. Did that person answer all your questions like Google or Siri? Did that person work tirelessly to meet a looming deadline? Did the person step into the midst of crisis and chaos and bring order to the situation, ultimately saving the day? Did that person share their experience, teach other team members, and coach the team to be better and more capable? With those reflections in mind, indicators of the hero complex might be one of the following. A team member who is not quite committed to the team, yet able to deliver amazing results while grumbling about the work the entire time. A team member who shows up at just the right moment to complete the task at the razor's edge toward the 11th hour of the time box and then get cheered for saving the day while not showing up to complete the work ahead of schedule. There are more behavior warning lights than this, but these 2 behaviors are the ones that I have seen most regularly. The following is possibly the worst case example of the hero complex played out. There might be a team member who creates a problem, recognizes the problem quickly, and then works tirelessly to solve the problem. This happens while blaming the team for not catching the risk before it became an issue. No, seriously, there are people who actually and hopefully unintentionally create problems that only they can solve and then complain about how they are always putting out the fires. It's worth noting the hero complex can show up in subtle, less impactful, and less extreme ways. At times, the hero complex can be tough to spot. It might be casual comments made with a smile and a gentle head shake, and a willingness to jump into the mix with a quick fix. The hero might write down most of the steps to perform complicated or complex work, but accidentally or forgetfully leave out one or two critical pieces of information. The hero might run through training or work examples so quickly in real time that there should be a pause button that the team can push when information is flowing too fast. These are just a few examples of how the hero complex can be disguised as genuine helpfulness and teamwork. These actions can lead to a sense of learned helplessness, where the team is quite dependent on the hero to get the toughest work done. A personal example of this subtle learned helplessness is when I was on a Navy deployment and our team received orders to a new mission. I decided to figure out what our new mission was, which command we were supporting in Afghanistan, how to get us from Kuwait to Bagram, Kabul, Kandahar, or someplace else where were needed. I used my network to get the information, get in contact with the receiving command, and arrange our flight plans. There was one problem with this approach. I did this without much involvement from the team, and boy, that was a big mistake. I should have asked for help and kept as many people in the loop as were interested in knowing what was going on. I failed to notice that while I was task focused towards achieving results, the team was information starved and sitting on the sidelines waiting to get in the game. In retrospect, I should have asked everyone for their assistance and asked each person to work on the problems that they felt most comfortable with handling, while enabling communication between team members to grow and sustain trust among us. I made the team dependent on me to solve the problems around our mission change. I acted without providing concrete, actionable details around how we might pivot while gaining the team's agreement, alignment, and support. Lesson learned the hard way about being a hero and damaging trust while exercising leadership behavior. Oh, and by the way, real quick, leadership is an emergent behavior that anyone on the team can demonstrate. In self-organizing and self-managing teams, demonstrating leadership can lead to team agility and increased team trust if everyone is invested in achieving the outcomes that the team and the organization desire. One of my former IBM colleagues, Mohammed, said it something like this: we agree and commit, or we disagree and commit. Either way, we need to commit and act. Another part of this point is gauging team trust. The signals might be plain to see and hear around team trust, like the team doesn't really want to work with the hero, the team is resigned to accepting the hero's behavior, or worse, the team works against the hero and the organization's goals. The distrust indicators could be subtle. Not enough hero behavior to break trust completely all at once, but enough hero behavior to slowly erode trust over time. Weak signals are harder to detect as the hero may not have any desire for recognition or being in the spotlight, just a drive to step in and trying to avoid failure while not learning from the experience. Some team signs might be being absent more than usual to meetings or to work, being disengaged in conversations or meetings, avoiding conversations, avoiding other team members beyond just the hero. This behavior may not lead to explicit action or feedback from the team and may require delicate probing on an individual team member basis. The team's response to behavior, the way the team reacts or approaches the hero leading into, during, and after the response, may shed some light on the trust dynamic. With all that said, let's pivot to the triangles on the slide. They illustrate two concepts most of us may be aware of in our personal and professional lives. The left side triangle is the dreaded drama triangle, or DDT. The right side triangle is the empowerment dynamic, or TED triangle. Author David Emerald wrote about both triangles in his book, The Power of TED, the Empowerment Dynamic. A team goal should be to move from the dreaded drama triangle, which breaks down team trust, and move toward the empowerment dynamic triangle, which begins to rebuild or restore team trust. I want to note that with agile teams, trust breakdown might be easier or more difficult to surface. Most of the agile teams I've worked with seek positive intent from each other, and the hero complex may not be immediately apparent within the team. If team health begins to trend negatively, either blatantly or subtly, it might be an indicator that a hero is working hard to save the day without understanding the potential damage to team trust. So, a lot to cover. I wanted to open it up for a quick round of Q&A, and I am very comfortable with awkward silence. So if nobody has a question they want to ask in chat or directly online, I'm good with that, and we can move on.
So I'm going to ask a question. When you're identifying this hero complex, is it somebody that is intentionally doing it, or can it be somebody that might want to be looking good in the situation, but they don't necessarily sabotage as much as maybe what you're describing? Is this like the extreme definition of what you're sharing with us?
Oh yeah, Brian, it's totally hyperbolic.
Okay.
Yeah, and you're dead on. And I've actually seen it to be such that it's like, hey, do you realize that what you're doing here is actually being a little bit harmful? And oftentimes, people who are well-meaning and well-intentioned don't even pick up on it. So, yeah, I only shared an extreme example because I actually had a colleague that did that, and it was crazy.
I can think
So,
of somebody in my past also that maybe didn't always wear the superhero cape, but just in various situations, what you're describing kind of resonates. That it was just kind of like, and I could never quite put my finger on why is this. It just something doesn't feel right.
yeah, and it's amazing that the behavior can be so subtle and so benign. That it's like, I don't get this.
Mm-hmm.
And trust me, Brian, had I not lived through this myself, I wouldn't even be able to present it, because I know it's a thing. I really do.
Yeah, everything you're describing, it resonates, and it's all possible. And I mean, there are occasionally things you hear of examples, of your Don person or other things that I've heard, and you could take it to the extreme also of the firefighter that's an arsonist. And so, yeah, I mean, it's definitely a personality aspect that can exist.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. Thank you for asking. Anybody else? All right, I'm going to do my auctioneer. Going once, going twice. I'll move on to the next point. And thanks again for that question, Brian. I really appreciate that. My toughest learning has come from failure, from working so hard to make it happen that I could not hear my teammates over my own awesomeness. I strive for excellence and precise execution in my work, and full transparency, I'm a recovering perfectionist. I've pushed myself and others to points that have caused me to make bad choices and experience lifetime regrets. One of my mentors, Tim, who's also a retired Navy SEAL, said to me that I have the heart to be on the teams, but my body could not take the physical punishment. Pretty high praise for a guy like me who's not very athletic and has eye challenges, and who couldn't type fast enough to join the Navy and be a journalist at one point. I share all that to say this. I am my own worst enemy when it comes to learning and practicing team enabling behavior. Some of the best coaching advice I received was from my great friend Byron, who I met while working on cruise ships for Carnival Cruise Line in Miami. He gave me some straight talk a few years after I had left the submarine force and prior to serving in the special operations community. Byron pointed out my willingness to take shortcuts to achieve the next goal or objective I had in mind. I had not considered the impact of my shortcuts and how it might be creating space for my hero complex to show up and save the day. He told me the unvarnished truth, and it hit me hard to the point where I felt I really needed to look at my motives and do some soul searching. I admit he was right. I was wrong. And I adjusted my attitude and behavior while putting in the hard work to get the results I wanted to without cutting corners. Not every teammate can handle blunt assessments like Byron's to me about how I achieve results. We need to remember that each of us is a person with self doubts, influencing feelings, negative emotions, and personal struggles. If a hero is a type who might be able to receive direct feedback in the moment when the behavior shows up, then continue to proceed with caution and empathy while providing feedback in the moment. If not, do some reflection on your own past experiences with the hero and ask some probing questions of the hero prior to providing feedback. Once the sense making is complete, pick the right time and place and prepare for the conversation with the hero privately to help preserve trust and support the team dynamic. I would also suggest inviting a neutral observer who's not on the team as company or organization policy advises or permits. Without sense making to figure out where the hero is in their own head, you might make matters worse rather than make matters better. As well, talk through what team enabling behavior looks like with the hero if time permits. Don't overwhelm the conversation with detail as feedback is processed at different speeds for different people. It might be advisable to separate the conversation on feedback and team enabling behavior. If the hero becomes defensive, this will allow, the team enabling behavior if the hero becomes defensive. This will allow the hero to reflect on the information being presented before proceeding with the next steps on those things as far as suggested behavior changes. I want to pause for a moment and allow this preceding point to set in. What I'm about to share is probably the most delicate personal moment in this particular webinar. If you suspect the hero on the team may have an underlying unspoken set of challenges that are a point of cause for their behavior, conclude the feedback conversation and engage the human resources team. The situation might call for clinical professionals specifically trained to work in the space of human behavior. And this leads me to my story. That is part of my own journey away from the hero complex while finding a new normal, navigating the effects of post-traumatic stress from my time in uniform. For a few years after my final deployment, my second to Afghanistan, I was really tightly wound. I was stressed, strained, and really immersed in my work. I was also easily frustrated, short-tempered, and quick to get angry when I felt ignored professionally or not taken seriously in my business career. I was torn by how I could be respected while I was performing my reserve duties in uniform and yet be disregarded and disrespected back in my real job. Once I retired from the Navy Reserve, my response to stress triggers only got worse, to the point where after false starts, misunderstandings, and missteps, I found myself in the ranks of the underemployed. I had to take a hard look at my actions, behaviors, and results to figure out how I had ended up in that situation. I discovered that I needed help to heal from post-traumatic stress. I was not a hero to anyone. I could not pull miracles off anymore. I had reached the end of my road, in my search for validation after my time in uniform. I worked through my hurt, my healing, and finding what normal looks like for me each day. I needed to see the work, the world, and the teams I support differently as I came to terms with my own needs and weaknesses. Maybe your hero is not suffering from a large personal or professional setback. Maybe it's rooted in childhood bullying, organization dysfunction, or even temperament challenges. Teams can learn to work with their hero and help their hero through the cause of the hero complex. Exercise caution as organizational culture may be enabling and reinforcing the hero complex unwittingly or unwittingly. Leaders and managers should be engaged and involved in supporting both the team and the hero to work towards learning team enabling behavior. Team enabling behavior might be asking the hero to demonstrate or teach skills to fellow team members, providing support for a side project that the hero has a keen interest in completing, but not enough time or ability to get it done alone. The team rallying around the hero as the hero presents at a conference or a community group to affirm the hero's value to the team. Remember, the team does not have to travel this road alone in the process of helping the hero develop team enabling behavior. Leadership and management have active roles to play in this process as well. They help create the environment that reduces the opportunities for heroes to flourish and amplify the structures that support team success. In wrapping this thought up, let's refer to the triangles on the slide again. A goal should be that the hero and the team work together and everyone begins to move away from the roles of victim, persecutor, or rescuer/hero, and toward the roles of creator, coach, and challenger. This shifts the conversation from anxiety-based, problem-focused to passion-based, outcome-focused team interactions. The result could be less strife and more harmony between team members. So I want to pause before we get on to the final point. Any questions out there? All right, 30 seconds of uncomfortable silence, and I'm good on going on to the final point. Thanks for hanging in there with me, everyone. As we begin the final thought, I want to highlight the importance of rebuilding, restoring, and returning trust as a primary objective for all parties. Without trust, personal trust, and team trust, the team cannot achieve the desired outcomes they're working towards or support the organization's needs. In Stephen M.R. Covey's The Speed of Trust, he writes about the 5 waves of trust model shown in the graphic on the left side of the slide. Consider if your hero is unable to trust themselves, let alone their teammates. How can the hero trust the organization? It begins with a conscious effort and working agreement within the team to continue the process of developing new habits that encourage team enabling behavior from the hero. Trust can be restored through consistent team-centered communication around the work that needs to be done. The team may be able to develop a polite code phrase for the hero when it thinks the hero is diving back into old, damaging behavior patterns. The phrase might be, "We're all heroes here," or "I see some heavy lifting." Self-managing teams can set the dynamics so that the hero feels accountable to the team for achieving the goals of the team and valued as a team member. A novel outcome of the hero developing team enabling behavior might be an environment for the growth of just-in-time heroes and heroic teams. Imagine a team developing a complicated algorithm and the hero coaching 2 or 3 capable and smart team members. Maybe the resulting algorithm is so simple and well crafted and easy to use that it becomes a company standard for other teams to follow in their own development work. Maybe it is a product that's co-designed and developed by the team that deeply connects with the customers and drives revenues to new levels for everyone's benefit. Maybe it's troubleshooting an outage together that restores service to thousands of customers while preserving the organization's reputation, all because the hero replicated their own key skills and abilities in others who became just in time heroes themselves. These scenarios are a business dream. I can share with you that I've seen this happen in the Navy. I had an outstanding intelligence analyst who was a hero. Mel could pull a thread and find supporting intelligence for her theories like no other analyst I worked with professionally. Her work was excellent and rock solid, but she needed some coaching on her teamwork skills. We worked as a team to help her past her personal challenges and to position her for success. She began training fellow analysts to become as capable as she was. In her weak areas, the other teammates became just in time heroes the unit needed to support operations. To illustrate the concept of a just in time hero, I'm going to refer to the power of TED. David Emerald writes, first described by Dr. Stephen Karpman in the late 1960s, the drama triangle roles of victim, the primary role, persecutor, which the victim blames for their suffering, and rescuer, who steps in to try and take away the victim's suffering. Their interplay vividly describes the most common strategies human beings use to manage their fear and anxiety. Rename the dreaded drama triangle in The Power of TED, the empowerment dynamic, the DDT aptly describes the toxic nature of those roles. People shift in and out of all three of these roles in the DDT. All three roles have their own roots in a problem orientation and focus in on what they don't want and don't like. Each role also sees the others as a problem to react to. TED is a positive alternative to the drama triangle. TED is a set of relationships or roles that offer a substitute to living life as a victim. TED inspires the realization that choice can lead to positive approaches to life's challenges. Reconnecting to our dreams, desires, and taking action towards those outcomes requires a shift in mindset for most people. When shifts happen, you can move into a creator, challenger, or coach role. Greater awareness and options become available to you. I want to encourage you to consider these concepts when working with the hero on your team. Think about how TED might change the conversation and create just in time heroes, and how the 5 waves of trust might influence how to establish and restore trust within the team. I want to conclude this thought and refer to the graphic one more time. The end goal for the hero and the team should be to switch from a poor me to an I can do it response to challenges. Bringing this all home for a landing, we've covered 3 points in this session. Number 1, how to recognize the hero complex, associated behavior, and gauge team trust. Number 2, how to encourage team enabling behavior from the hero. And number 3, cultivate trust, develop just-in-time heroes, and heroic teams. To wrap up this session, I would like to challenge you to do some reflection on trust in your team and what it means to everyone involved. Look at the dynamics between the members and assess the behavior to determine if everyone is working together while avoiding dreaded drama that might lead to hero behavior. If there are one or more heroes who erode trust, consider how different behavior could be encouraged while dampening undesired behavior, and how to develop and grow just-in-time heroes and heroic teams. if you can spot the team member who seems to be surrounded, see if you can spot the team member who seems to be surrounded by friction. If you have a hero who is consistently saving the day under the radar, who grumbles about putting out fires or fixes the complicated issues, but is not building team capacity to do the same, then you should consider having a conversation. Be empathetic and understanding. Ask open-ended questions while avoiding the temptation to diagnose the origin of the hero's behavior. Work with the team to create opportunities for the hero to build, show, and teach the team how to be heroes as well, while creating a heroic team. A goal should be to rebuild and restore trust while moving from the DDT to TED. In closing, if this session resonates with you, I'd like to invite you to connect with me on LinkedIn. As well as I'd like to thank you for your attention and time. It was a pleasure to share with you. Until we can connect again, be cool, stay calm, and learn on. So now it's open Q&A. Does anybody have anything that they'd like for me to talk through or clarify for them?
Trying to give others a chance. Mindy will attest. I'm often the person that'll ask a lot of questions, but trying to give others a chance since I've already asked one.
Yep, go ahead and unmute or type your questions in the chat box. If you are uncomfortable being the first one to ask a question, Brian is not shy and Brian will ask the first question if you want Brian to. You could stay silent for a minute and let Brian be the first one to ask the question if you'd like.
Alrighty, so I'll just go ahead then. So one of the things that I'm trying to process, Tim, I've never been in the military, and I'm just wondering, do you think being in the military is an environment where you maybe encountered more? Like I said, I'm aware of some people that, as I think about it, that can fall into this. Do you think being in the military is an environment that maybe fosters more of what you've seen with this? And I guess what I'm trying to think is with ranks and whatnot, there are different things that when I try to think about some things with teams that I've been with, there are aspects about if there are various team leaders and whatnot, and they tend to step in and do things. And I'm trying to balance, is that more of a definition of role? Or is it that there are some times that the water can get muddied there?
You know, I think it's, and I'm gonna refer back to my standard consulting answer. It depends. It's very context specific. I think what I saw over the course of 7 years in the submarine force, yeah, the culture kind of encourages that, especially because of the type of pressure that's involved. You know, being on board a submarine, you are really cut off and isolated from the world, and you've got to have people who are willing to step up in high risk situations to get the job done. And unfortunately, it does cultivate that kind of mentality. Now, I flip that over to my time as an intel guy supporting special operations units, and special operations units are intentionally structured in such a way that everybody is cross-functional, and everybody fills in for everybody else if one of their colleagues goes down. And so it does not lend itself to one person rising above another. In fact, you're getting the best of the best anyway, you know, both in the submarine force as well as special operations. The difference, though, is that if you've ever watched some of the training videos, whether it be the Q course for special forces in the Army, Ranger, I think it's RASP now, Ranger Assessment and Selection Process, BUDS, which is basic underwater and demolitions for the SEALs, as well as a host of others. They beat these guys down. any sort of attitude about being a hero, it gets worked out of them because the unit cohesion is so important, because you're really only talking about a handful of people who are going to be forced to work together under duress stress and the most awful situations you can humanly imagine and be successful at completing whatever the work is that they're tasked to do. So yeah, it's you can see it in cultural extremes. I even saw it working in the joint environment where certain branches of the service kind of have that, like you said, this hierarchy, and so it encourages you to get promoted because then you can be a jerk to somebody else because you know everything, you know. And it's not designed that way, but oftentimes that pecking order gets established, and it just carries on from from one leader or manager to the next.
Okay, thanks.
Anyone else? And that was a really great question.
Hi, team. Can you give some example of team enabling behavior?
Sure. One of the things I like is that at least for software development is the exercising that concept of paired programming and mentorship, where you may have a really talented developer partnered with somebody who's learning, and that fosters and cultivates the empathy that's needed in that team enabling behavior. Now, mind you, the superstar, the hero, may be a little bit reluctant, but the flip side is that if the organizational culture is such that they don't want these one-off folks who are really interested in only getting their work done. They want somebody who's cross-functional and certainly willing to work with others towards technical excellence. They should be able to say, look, if it can't be resolved within the team, the management, the leadership should be able to say, look, we want you to build skill and capability in fellow team members. And so as a result, it's just one of those things that, a lot of the practices that have come up over the course of the last 20 or so years by nature actually tend to lend themselves to developing and building team enabling behavior. Paired programming is probably the quickest and easy example. Doing, having a pairing with a developer and a tester is another good example, because a tester is there to basically pick apart the code. But if both members, we'll say the hero developer and the less heroic tester, are coming together, that can be a forcing function in the conversation. If the friction still exists, the team can, by peer pressure, potentially say, look, we see what's going on. We see how you're treating the tester. It's just not acceptable. We really need for the two of you to work together. And that's often where an agile coach or a scrum master as a neutral observer can come in and have some coaching conversations, and that's where I find myself oftentimes. I'm watching how things are working within the team dynamic, and I'm trying to observe the patterns of behavior. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, thank you. This has become clearer. Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure.
And, I often find that the performance reviews and the compensations mechanisms play a critical part in encouraging the team behavior and team collaboration over individual performance. So can you share your opinion on that and share how your teams in the Navy implement the performance reviews compensation mechanism in order to encourage the team behavior?
Yes, yeah, and I have a distinct view on this, and I am with you. Team compensation, team performance, not individual compensation, and based on individual performance. And bonuses, of course, are really a hot button topic as well. Um, you know, it is in my mind, it is counterintuitive to reward some and punish others based on an individual case by case basis. Somebody can have a really off, odd, weird, traumatic year and lose a performance bonus just because of situations that were outside of their ability to influence. But if the team is doing right by one another and the compensation structure and the bonus structure are actually tied to outcomes, ideally you're going to get the type of behavior that you want. So in the military, it's a flat compensation structure. There are no bonuses involved. You know exactly what you're going to get as you advance to the next pay grade based on the number of years of experience, as well as certain additional compensation for higher risk occupations, as well as exposure to dangerous conditions. And so, pay gets taken off the table really quick as a motivator, because you know what everybody else makes around you. It's pretty simple. The pay tables are actually published, and you can go online and do a search for military pay structure, and you can stack the numbers up, and pretty soon you realize, man, if I'm an 05 over 20 years, I'm going to make over $9,000 per month in base pay. So thankfully the military doesn't have to deal with that dynamic, and I think that if the private sector started adopting not necessarily a flat open pay structure based on tenure as well as promotion levels, but more focused on team-based compensation and outcome-focused bonuses, then we might see a dramatic change in the way that teams work. And so if you're in that environment at an organization that really promotes that and works that way, wow, congratulations. That's phenomenal. And you should be evangelizing that point. So thank you for asking that question.
Thank you.
So
again, I'm comfortable with silence here. So
I was pausing again. So I'm wondering, as you've kind of, processed this and obviously studied some of the history of different dynamics and, with the models and stuff that you shared with us, in your experience and it's probably more outside of the military, is it possible, or have you seen a team that actually, for lack of a better way of saying it, is okay with the hero model? Because if the team is achieving positive results, but they know that then that if the others are kind of, where I'm going with it is from an agile perspective, is it possible that as a coach or as an agile delivery lead, that a team might fall into a comfort zone with that, saying, oh, we know we've got Tim, so we're going to always be okay. We're going to deliver enough that we're going to be viewed as a solid team. And so you're left kind of being the one saying there are really bad dynamics going on here, but nobody else wants to recognize it. Have you faced that in your work?
Yes, I have. And it is a tough conversation. And you're right. There are teams that, by and large, they're really comfortable working that way. And it's like any dynamic. It's very challenging to surface that and not get immediate denial and rejection to the concept. In agility, in my opinion, is always about holding up a mirror to the team and going, is this really the ideal behavior? I don't know. Ask yourselves, because at the end of the day, my question comes down to, so if Joe got hit by a bus, or if Shweta happened to go down with COVID for 6 weeks, 8 weeks, what would you do? It's valid. you
Yes.
know, and so, you know, I hate to say it, I don't think a lot of us do a whole heck of a lot of soul searching when it comes to that type of, thinking. And this is the reason why I've taken the time, because it's especially in the times that we're living in, I see the teams that I'm supporting wearing out. And what I don't want to do is I don't want to highlight somebody, oh well, so and so they're carrying the load over here at the expense of everybody else involved. And so, for me, and this is tough, and I'm going to be transparent. As a guy, I'm not necessarily the most empathetic person, but I am thinking beyond the immediate needs and going, you know what? I'm a human being.
Mhm.
If I'm sensing that there's a bit of stress, if I'm sensing that there's a bit of frustration, and it is because, Joe or Shweta are really always stepping in, I probably need to have a conversation with them and say, hey, I'm a bit concerned about you. And I'm saying this as a fellow human being. Are you okay with the amount of work that you're just always going in and taking care of on behalf of the team? Are you wired that way? Is it something that you can sustain? And of course, in Scrum, that's one of those things. We preach a sustainable pace.
Mhm.
you know, and that was never codified in the Agile Manifesto, but that's where I have to come from as a coach and as a Scrum Master. Is what we are doing with the heroes sustainable? And if it's not, how can we fix this together? And it sheds light on probably a dirty secret topic that nobody really wants to discuss.
Definitely. Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Yep, my pleasure. Man, these are some really good thought-provoking questions. Thank you for asking them.